We're seeing 28 years later today, finally, too. And I have not, all I've heard about is people say, what about the ending? What about the ending? But I don't know anything about it. So, like, I just know that, like, something happens in the end.
Well, I did say, actually, right when I walked out, I said, I'm really interested in what you think of this movie, especially the ending.
I heard that a bunch of times, too, like, elsewhere, like, in headline, but, like, I was able not to hear anything about it. So we're pretty excited.
With no context, I wouldn't even really know how to spoil it for you, but spoiling it wouldn't get across why people are so, like, wait. I don't know. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I'm like really hyped for it. We're going to see Materialist today, too.
I think you probably liked A Matter of Life and Death more than me.
A little bit. You gave it 3.5 and I gave it 4. But yeah, so maybe a little bit. But
well, here, let's just get right into it. Matter of Life and Death is 1946. So let's we'll start with 1946 because that's what we told Letterboxd we were doing. Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Brad Garoon and I'm here with Jake Ziegler. On Never Did It, we take a look back at the last 100 plus years of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. So excited to change that intro slightly in 3 weeks or whenever we get to season 2. But today we're looking at the movies of 1946. I should just be really honest about what I did here, because A Matter of Life and Death, which is what I recommended for you, was not initially the movie that I had recommended for you. I had recommended It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, how have I never seen It's a Wonderful Life?
Well, which is crazy, but I was like, what more could we possibly have to say about It's a Wonderful Life, except that it's a Christmas movie that I actually think you enjoy. So when I think we'll do a Christmas movie or a holiday movie miniseries, and we can get to it then.
It's a good idea. And it's like every year I think, like, this is going to be the year I watch It's a Wonderful Life. And then for whatever reason, I just don't. So it's not like I've been avoiding it or anything. I just don't know why I've never seen it all the way
you're
through.
A Frank Capra guy. I mean, you're in it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, well, let's talk about A Matter of Life and Death, which puts Powell and Pressburger in the 3 Never Did It Club, along with, actually, well, I can tell you because
pull it up.
Letterboxd is so cool. Letterboxd is so cool because it does stats for lists now.
I love that.
We'll go over this more, I think, in 2 weeks when we get to our final episode of season 1. But Alfred Hitchcock and Orson Welles are our number 1 and 2 directors on Never Did It, with 5 and 4 films respectively. Now Powell and Pressburger, Emmerich Pressburger and Michael Powell join Howard Hawks, Woody Allen, Billy Wilder, Federico Fellini, F.W. Murnau, Charlie Chaplin, Frank Capra, and Oliver Stone in the 3 Never Did It's Club. So
it's exclusive.
It's exclusive, but also it exposes something that you texted me recently, which was that we are boys and we watch a lot of boy movies.
We should do a female director unit, because we were talking about, like, the most prolific female directors and things, and I think there's a lot of blind spots that I would have there. So I think that would be a good future unit to do.
100%. Female directors, female leads. Like we not that we haven't watched any movies with female directors. Like I gave you Were Never Really There, and her new movie is coming out very shortly.
Oh yeah, it's working with Ezra Miller again.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I just saw Ezra talking about that.
Oh, I hate that. And that's my least favorite movie of hers. We Need to Talk About Kevin is like, that's just like misery porn.
Yeah, it's quite difficult.
So I gave you A Matter of Life and Death because it's just less seen, and I thought it'd be cool to talk about it. It is on the Criterion Collection. It's not on the Criterion Channel, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
So we had to watch this, I'm sure you did too, on YouTube with ads every 10 minutes on the minute.
The ads were a little obtrusive, yeah. But I was just glad that it was, at least streaming somewhere that had subtitles I was able to watch.
Totally. So the 2 leads here are David Niven and Kim Hunter, and this is a romance that spans the heavens. It's got a really funny opening scene where Niven is in a very distressed airplane during World War II. His buddy Bob has been killed. Everyone else has bailed out, and there are no more parachutes for him.
Well, and they bailed out because he told them to. He sacrificed himself, basically.
Exactly. He's a good guy. He's also like a very charming guy. It's David Niven. Come on.
It's David Niven. Of course he is.
Yeah. So he calls Kim Hunter, who's an American radio wench. An American...
Were we just talking about how we need to be more attuned to women? Come on.
Yeah, she's an American radio operator in England during World War II. This is like the height of the war. And so Niven, basically, they fall in love with each other over the radio, mostly because it's 1946.
Right. Let's waste no time. Let's just get that love story going. Yeah.
Totally. But it is very cute and charming how it happens. Unlike a different movie we're going to talk about next week, people fall in love just because.
Just because I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
So Niven has to jump out without his parachute. He basically tells her, I'm going to die. If I didn't die, I'd marry you. So he jumps out and whoops, the angel who's supposed to take him to heaven forgets to catch him. It's too foggy. It's foggy.
Yeah, he's foggy. He missed it, yeah.
That darn London fog. It's a really funny setup for a movie. So heaven is freaking out that they missed this guy. I so wish you'd seen the Phoenician Scheme, because a lot of...
I have seen the Phoenician Scheme.
Oh, you have? I didn't know that.
I think I literally told you, like, before we were going to, I'm like, yeah, we're going to it tonight.
You tell me a lot of the time when you're about to go to a movie, which I love, but I get it mixed up. And I've seen a lot of these movies before you because I live near New York. So yeah, I'm like, oh, good, he's catching up.
Yeah, like you saw it like 3 weeks ago, and I finally saw. We just saw it like Wednesday or Thursday night. So yeah, it was just recently. Yeah.
Was that before or after you watched A Matter of Life and Death?
Right before. I saw Phoenician Scheme on Wednesday, and then I watched Matter of Life and Death on Thursday.
I'm kind of jealous of that, because the Phoenician Scheme is very clearly stylistically indebted to A Matter of Life and Death, where Powell and Pressburger are using, the beautiful Technicolor that they always do. That these guys utilize color and film in a way that no one else ever did. But the afterlife scenes are all in black and white, just like in the Phoenician Scheme. But in the afterlife, they're freaking out. They want to get this guy back. But when the angel goes to get him, he refuses because you screwed up by not getting me, and I have since fallen in love.
I deserve an appeal. He wants to have an appeal. Yeah.
Right, and that's the premise of the movie. Because of that, our old friend Roger Livesley, who plays a doctor, is recruited by Niven and Hunter to help him figure out his defense. Niven gets to choose any dead person in existence to defend him, but he keeps finding reasons that they wouldn't be a good defense for him. And so I don't want to spoil the end of the movie, so I won't say much more about it, except we love Roger Livesley because he is the titular Colonel Blimp from our great Colonel Blimp episode. Anyway, the movie, I thought, I think it's a lot of fun. I thought you'd have some fun with it. It's not my favorite Powell and Pressburger movie. Like, it doesn't come close to Colonel Blimp, I don't think, but it's a pretty fun diversion. What did you think of A Matter of Life and Death?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. Like you said, it's my least favorite of the 3 Powell Pressburger movies I've seen, but that's good company to be in. I mean, I think Colonel Blimp and The Red Shoes are both all-timers in their own way. And this movie does a lot of interesting things. Like I said, just the dynamic and the dichotomy between the life scenes and the afterlife scenes, the color and the black and white. Like I said, no one's doing, especially was not doing stuff like that back in that day. These guys are just so unique in their style. And yeah, David Niven's just such a treat to watch. And yeah, like I said, it didn't, strike me, the same way like Colonel Blimp was just like, wow. Matter of Life and Death or Stairway to Heaven, as it was initially called, yeah, I think was just it was more fun than their other movies, and a little more slight, but I smiled through most of it, and it was I really enjoyed it. And I could see myself probably watching it again before I would watch maybe even Colonel Blimp or The Red Shoes again. So those are a little more a little denser, a little more to get through, and this was just a little lighter and fun.
Totally. I agree with all of that. The other Powell and Pressburger movie I've seen is Black Narcissus, which is also a real drag. People going crazy in a convent in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I've just seen the 3 we've done on the podcast here.
This looks just as good and is fun. It's funny that it was called Stairway to Heaven because there is a stairway to heaven in it, and that is where he has to choose his defense. So why not Abraham Lincoln? Why not
Socrates or whoever
or
they were?
Muhammad? Yeah. I love that the answer to most is like, I don't think he'd defend a British person. I think he'd be mad at me for being a Brit. And there actually is a lot of interesting, near the end, commentary about British colonialism, because he is ultimately prosecuted by an American revolutionary figure, but like a small one, the first person to die in the Revolutionary War. So, of course, he hates British people. And I thought that actor was very good. Raymond Massey. I thought he was very, very good. And the other actor of note, Marius Goring, who was in The Red Shoes. He was the star of the male lead of The Red Shoes, plays this angel who is, steering Niven's character through what he has to do in the afterlife. And I have to say, it's totally tragic because Goring wanted to play the Niven role. And they were like, no, we want Niven. We want you to be Conductor 71. He goes, well, I want the Niven role or nothing. And they were like, fine, we'll replace you with Peter Ustinov. And I'm so bummed that he didn't stand on ceremony so that we could get a second Peter Ustinov, David Niven movie, because the only one that exists, and these guys were friends in real life, but the only one that exists is Death on the Nile, which we've also covered on this podcast. So that was tragic. But yeah, anyway, I got ahead of myself. There's this, because of the back and forth, there's like all the jurors are people supposedly from all over the world, but they're all from British colonies. And that's supposed to work against Niven. And then I can't say what happens, the cute thing that comes out, because I actually want people to watch this, and there's a fun twist with Livesley's character.
Yeah, and one other actor who shows up in this movie, her role is uncredited even, but she's listed on Letterboxd. That's Lois Maxwell, who would go on to play Miss Moneypenny in many of the early Bond movies.
Oh, I didn't know that. Who was she in the movie?
It just says her role is uncredited, and she's just actress.
Terrific.
So yeah, she probably is probably in it for like 2 seconds. But I see her list. As I was looking at the letterbox list, I was like, oh, Lois Maxwell, no way. And I clicked on it to make sure it was, her. Yeah, it's her. She's Moneypenny in 14 Bond movies.
Wow. I'm sure Amy Adams will be the next Moneypenny now that Denis Villeneuve is directing James Bond. And the only other interesting thing, the thing that I thought I had to call out, since I was going to give you It's a Wonderful Life, is that they both start almost the exact same way in outer space. You don't expect It's a Wonderful Life to start that way, but it's angels talking to each other about him, and like I think they're represented by planets in It's a Wonderful Life. And in this, it's very serious. But that one shot of when they're pulling away from the arena in heaven, and it's just like, oh, there's actually billions, maybe trillions of people there. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's a cool shot. And even the Stairway to Heaven shot, where he's going up and down the stairs, like that's a really cool effect that they have in there. And I can see why they would want to highlight that in the title of the movie. I think A Matter of Life and Death works much better. And I'm glad that it's reverted to that or become that, whatever. But that Stairway to Heaven is pretty impressive effect.
Yeah, it is 100%. And it's the cover. It's more of the cover of the Criterion Blu-ray. The Matter of Life and Death kind of sounds both more British and more serious than Stairway to Heaven. And Stairway to Heaven is more like the tone of the movie. It's a Stairway to Heaven.
It's funny, when I was typing this movie into a letterbox or whatever it was, I started typing Matter of Life and Death.
Yeah, sure.
Like, no, that's, yeah. Also very British. Until
you watch this movie, you don't know where that reference comes from. I know this didn't get nominated for any Oscars.
Yeah, definitely no Oscars. And it actually didn't. It's weird. It came out in the States in like December of 46, but then also in January 47. And it was eligible in the 47 Oscar year, not 46, which is weird. But as we know from the Battle of Algiers, they played a little fast and loose with release dates back then. It was nominated for something called the Bodil Award for Best European Film. Not sure what that is. New York Film Critics Circle acknowledged it as the best film and the best director. And then there was also in a thing called the Photoplay Awards. Not familiar with that, but it was one of the best. I guess they gave awards every month because this was Best Picture of the Month. Jesus. And then Best Performances of the Month for David Niven, Kim Hunter, and Roger Livesey. Not much.
I don't want to say posthumously. The movie lives on. It was placed on the 1999, when the British Film Institute did their big 100 Best British Films. It was on there at number 20. In 2012, it ranked 90th on the Sight and Sound list. And in 2022, it moved up to number 78. Now, I think in both cases, that's overdoing it. But it's a fun movie, and I recommend you check it out.
I think that's overkill for me too, but I'm glad that it's being recognized, and and that'll get more people to see it, and I think that's ultimately a win.
Now, a movie that could be praised that way and it wouldn't be overkill, in my opinion, is the one that you recommended, The Best Years of Our Lives, directed by William Wyler, a good Jewish boy. Why don't you tell us all about that?
Best Years of Our Lives follows 3 soldiers coming back from World War II, and that's how the movie kind of introduces us. They're trying to get back home, back to their hometown at the same time. So there's 3 of them, and they're all kind of in different walks of life. There's, one guy who's going to be going home to his wife and his kids, and there's another guy who's just kind of going home to he's married, but was just married before he left, so he doesn't know his wife very well. They haven't been together for very long. And then the third was played by Harold Russell, who lost his hands in the war. He now has 2 hooks for his hands. He's going home to his family and his girlfriend, and it's basically about them all just trying to reassimilate back into their families and into their community and just into the the greater world at large without this war going on. And different for all 3 of them, but it's also kind of the same for all 3 of them. The actors, we've got Frederick March, who is playing the older gentleman, and then Dana Andrews. So these 3 actors, and they interact with each other throughout the movie because they're all from the same community and they're all in the same war, and basically they all speak the same language in a certain sense, and that's what the movie does. And for a movie like this to have come out in 1946 means, the war had just ended. The real soldiers had all just come home from this, and to see something like this that was so, I guess, honest and maybe unflinching about the difficulties that they were having. I can imagine this would have been a difficult movie for anyone experiencing this to actually watch.
Forget watch. Harold Russell was a real soldier who really, now I don't know if he fought overseas. In the movie, he lost his hands because he was on a boat that was hit and then caught fire and his hands were burned off. In real life, it's even more crazy, the story of how he lost his hands. He was a munitions trainer, and he was handling dynamite, and there was a fuse malfunction and his hands exploded off because he was holding dynamite. So this actor's hook hands are real. At first I was watching, I didn't know this until maybe an hour into the movie. I was like, there's no way that this guy can do this with his hooks without, you know, a lot of training. Maybe someone else is doing the hands the way that I thought maybe it was like The Unknown, where they had someone else coming in to do like that. In The Unknown, they had someone else come in to do the expert work with the legs, with the feet. And in this, I thought maybe it was the same with the hooks. But no, he really did lose his hands. And I was astonished by it because I thought there's no way that he can be this adept with those hooks without having actually lived with them. And like you said, this is just after the war. So he'd only had at most a couple of years with these hooks. He's incredible. And then bonus, great actor.
My gosh, there's so many scenes with him that are they're heartbreaking, but then there's some great scenes with him too. I mean, like you said in your review, I mean, he's a find, and I can't believe I've never seen him in any other movie.
He only made, I think in his entire career, which spanned decades, like he made a couple movies in the 40s and then came back later in life and made a few. He was the first person to ever sell his spoiler, he won an Academy Award. He won 2 Academy Awards, technically.
Yeah, he did.
But spoiler, he sold his acting award, and he was the first person to ever do that. But Wyler, the director of this film, told him to go back to school because he will be typecast and then people will not want him anymore. And he started finding that was true. And he was like, all right, I'm going to follow Wyler's advice and I'm going to go get educated. And he just wasn't an actor because Hollywood was not going to have much for a guy with no hands. And who are the disabled people in Hollywood? What's her name? Marlee Matlin?
Mm-hmm.
She's typecast. Yeah. She's done the same thing her whole career. Luckily, she's been very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is disabled in Hollywood?
It's a short list.
Yeah, I'm sure these people exist, but they're typecast. And actually, this is sort of a total aside, but I watched part of an interview with Hornswoggle recently.
Oh, yeah. He's coming to MCPW in a couple of weeks, by the way.
That's cool. He seems like a cool guy.
That's all I've ever heard, is that he's cool. Yeah.
He was telling Chris Van Vliet, I can't
Van Vliet, yeah.
Yeah, that he hates Peter Dinklage because Dinklage made that big stink over Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and they became CGI, and that took tons of jobs away. And also, it took tons of jobs away in the industry writ large because these were roles for little person actors and stuntmen and stand-ins, and now they're all gone. And like, while yes, it wasn't politically correct and it wasn't reaffirming, but it was work. And in the age we live in, like, people need work, and he hates Peter Dinklage.
Interesting.
That is the very interesting thing about Harold Russell, excuse me. And he's wonderful. Yeah, he's not just melancholy, although he plays those scenes perfectly. He's also like innocent and sweet and kind to everyone. And he wants to bring this group of 3 guys together, even though Al, the old sergeant, is an alcoholic and is having a really hard time readjusting for that reason. And Derry, who's ostensibly the main character, is just like dirt poor and was much more decorated in the military than the other 2. So his experience at war is very different than his experience back home, where he first goes to greet his parents and they're living in like a really rundown home. His wife has stopped living with them because she wants to have a more, not very extravagant. She also kind of lives in a dump, but she can be out there more. She can have more of a active social life. And he has a hard time readjusting to his humble home and his flirtatious wife.
There's a scene with him and his wife where I almost had to pause the movie. It struck me. So when Derry, Sergeant Derry, he doesn't want to be associated with him despite all the, accolades and everything he got. He just really wants to move on from it. And he doesn't want to wear his uniform anymore. And she finally convinces him on a night they're going out to some restaurant. She's like, oh, just wear a uniform. You're so handsome. And he finally puts on the uniform and she says to him, like, oh, you look like yourself. And the look on his face when she says that is just like his soul just like left his body, because he's like, I want to be anything but this. And this is, what people see me as now. That scene just like, that killed me.
Yeah, it's awful. And the different ways that the 3 of them deal with their trauma is interesting. It's so fascinating that they found 3 distinct paths to put these guys on, because you've got Homer missing his hands and dealing with feeling like he can't support or wouldn't be accepted by his fiance, the sweet girl who lives next door. He thinks he's a monster now, basically.
Wilma.
And he has this great uncle named Butch who owns the bar that all 3 guys meet in frequently. Butch has a great response to him. He's like, so you don't want your parents to look at you differently, but you don't want them to treat you the same. There's nothing they can do to get this right. And Homer accepts that. He's a very sweet guy. He's like, yeah, right now I am alone. And then you've got Al, who is just drunk right off the bat. He is much higher stature than the other 2 guys. He's a banker, and the bank wants to use the fact that he's a veteran to their benefit to increase their standing in the community. But he's just blisteringly drunk the whole time. He's frustrated that his life is not the same as it was before he left. His kids have grown up without him being there. His son disappears halfway through the movie, which I found kind of strange.
Yeah, going to school, I guess.
Why didn't he go to the wedding? And that was what I wanted to know. Like, why wasn't the son at the wedding? Derry is going through severe PTSD. He's waking up in the middle of the night having terrible nightmares, and that plays into why he just wants to get as far away from the military as possible. And his wife, she doesn't like so much care that he's a military man, but she sees that without his military standing, there's not much to him status-wise. Like, his suit is bad. He's poor. He works as a druggist at a soda jerk and a druggist at a pharmacy, and pharmacies had much more going on. It's not working out for them. But tell us what the main plot of the movie is, because they actually left that out.
We're getting to it, yeah, because their lives further intersect because Al has a daughter who who is younger. She's an adult. Like I said, she grew into an adult while he was gone, and that was very hard for him to see. And as a parent, I get that. Like, I go every other week, I go without seeing my kid, and sometimes he comes back and I'm like, wow, you're different, like, or something's changed about them. So like, imagine going like 4 years without ever seeing them, and there wasn't FaceTime or even like easy to access phone calls or anything like that. It's just I just can't imagine going like 4 years and then trying to come back and see them. But anyway, so his adult daughter, who is played by Teresa Wright, she's Peggy, meets Fred, and she kind of takes care of him one night when they all come home and get drunk together, and she takes good care of Fred that night. It kind of leads further on to a love story between the two of them, where they both are falling for each other, but Fred is married already, of course, and with her being Al's daughter, there's some tension there between then Al and Fred, and that kind of further brings these two guys together.
Great dynamics. One thing we haven't said, aside from just kind of generally gushing, so the movie's quite long, almost 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene really takes its time, and not in like a Kelly Reichardt kind of way, but in and if, for those who don't know what that means, like, Kelly Reichardt movies are really deliberate. Like, you're watching people go through their daily routines very boringly. She takes slice of life to the next level. There's not a ton of dialogue. The dialogue's like funny and amusing, but more like wry than it is laugh out loud funny. It's not like that. These are all very long scenes, and they let you really sit in the emotion of them. And it's not a punishingly tragic movie. There's tons of humor. Like, Al, for as drunk as he is largely funny throughout the movie. And weirdly, Myrna Loy is top billed. She plays Al's wife, and everything she does is kind of funny. At first, I was like, oh, was she having an affair? And they quickly dispatch with like, that's not the case. I misread it.
Yeah.
And she's just like, man, my husband doesn't really have it together. But you really do sit in the emotions, whatever they are, of every scene. And like I said, the scenes go very long. I watched this all in one shot. It was real easy to get through. I thought it went by really fast.
I would have. I was not able to because it got really hot that weekend and the heat killed my TV. So I had to stop watching it for a little bit. But yeah, it for a movie, without action, these scenes do go by. It feels paced very well. And there wasn't anything where I felt like, oh gosh, we got to get on to the next, we got to go see what's going on with Homer. Or we got to go see what's going on with Fred, because, what's going on with Al is also very interesting. So when you're spending time with any of these characters, there's not a hurry to get, over to the next one. There's not like one obvious standout. Like some movies, there's a performance or a character that's just like, oh, I love this one above all the others. But in this one, those three main men are all like equally interesting and, equally important to the story. It's really impressive.
So I don't want to give away any more of the movie, because this is one of the top 5 movies I've seen pre-1960. It's right up there near the top of my 1940s list. So why don't you tell us about the tons of Oscar love that it got?
This movie did get tons of Oscar love, yes, and deservedly so. Like, so this is certainly one of the years that Oscar got it right. And I'll just echo the gushing that we've already done about it. But I think this might be one of the best movies ever made. I believe Spielberg has called it as such and was like a major influence on him. And you can totally see that in his work as well. But as far as Oscars, so it won 7 of 8 competitive awards that it was up for. It won Frederick March, won Best Actor. As we mentioned, Harold Russell won Supporting Actor. William Wyler won for Director. It won for Best Picture, Best Editing, Best Dramatic or Comedy Score, and Best Screenplay. The only one it lost was Best Sound. But then it was also, Harold Russel was also given an honorary award, and the reason was for bringing hope and courage to his fellow veterans through his appearance in The Best Years of Our Lives, which is one of the better uses of an honorary Oscar that they've had in their history, for sure.
Well, the reason they really gave it to him was because they didn't think he would win Best Supporting Actor, and they were like, this guy deserves something. It's great.
It's great. I mean, yeah, his performance is magnificent. He's so good in it, and it makes a case for this, and it comes up a lot, in casting, even still today. Like, do we have to cast, a gay person to be a gay person, or do we have to cast a disabled person to be a disabled person? This movie makes a very strong argument that, because Harold Russell really lived this life, he could really fully embody this character, and in a way that I don't think someone who hadn't lived that would have been able to.
I think that it brings up a really interesting tension, which is, what are movies for? Should we do a Best Years of Our Lives where we can get a Harold Russell and he can knock it out of the park and do an all-timer, like one of the best performances ever? Or are movies vehicles for actors' careers? And would it have been better to put like a Montgomery Clift in this role and just take we're going to talk about him next week, and just take his hands away, or give him a different disability? Put him in a wheelchair, do a Tom Cruise Born on the 4th of July, which I haven't seen. I know you have, but by all accounts is a great performance.
Yep.
But that was a way for Tom Cruise to accelerate his career. They could have gotten a real disabled veteran to do that. There are so many actors who don't get these opportunities. And I'm not even advocating for us to do that for the reason of like charity or fairness. But in some cases like this, it created the best movie. It just did. Like Montgomery Clift he wasn't an option, but I'm just using him as a straw man. Yeah. He would not have been better in this role than Harold Russell was. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion.
I have a top 5 for this year. Do you?
I'd only have 4, and that's if I count, counting Matter of Life and Death. Yeah, I'd only have 4, but I really liked all of them.
Well, you know what? Rank your top 4, because I'll rank my top 5. It's only one off.
Okay, yeah, so if I'm doing a top 4 of 1946, I'll have Matter of Life and Death would be number 4. I have Brief Encounter, which I know we covered for another year, but came out in the States in 46. So Brief Encounter would be on my list then. Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious would be number 2. I love that one. That's a 5-star for me. And Best Years of Our Lives is number 1, no question.
So I love that because we have different movies. That's very cool. I also have, first, I have one honorable mention, actually. Or dishonorable mention, I guess. It's Make Mine Music. During World War II, Disney made these compilation movies because they didn't have the staff to make real features. And Make Mine Music had the most famous sketch in Make Mine Music was the whale that sings opera. Classic Disney fan, that's what you'll remember from this. And for a while, this wasn't available on Disney Plus, but I think maybe it is now. Nope, it's still not. Weirdly still not, but easy enough to find elsewhere. And then at number 5, I have Beauty and the Beast, which was a Jean Cocteau film, not the original. I don't think Beauty and the Beast to be put on film. I think there's a silent version that's very famous.
Pretty sure, yeah.
This one has amazing set design, such cool special effects for 1946, the best costume design you can think of. It's freaking bonkers, the stuff people are wearing. It's like, that probably is what French people wore in the Middle Ages. It's very operatic. And I'm glad I watched it once, and I'll never watch it again. My number 4 is Archie Mayo's A Night in Casablanca, which is a Marx Brothers movie. It's a lot of fun. It's like kind of Casablanca, but the Marx Brothers. Yeah. It's a very similar thing. Nazis are trying to do something bad, and the Marx Brothers are trying to stop them. My number 3 is A Matter of Life and Death, which we talked about at great length. My last pitch, and I kind of said this before, but if you watched and enjoyed The Phoenician Scheme, or if you just thought it looked cool, definitely check out A Matter of Life and Death. He's never said that he was influenced by A Matter of Life and Death to make this movie, but there's just no way he's not.
Yeah.
My number 2 is It's a Wonderful Life. Everybody knows what that is. And my number 1 is The Best Years of Our Lives, which I can now agree is probably one of the best movies ever made. For a quote unquote weepy, it's not overwrought. It feels very real. And even by the exaggerated style of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it feels pretty real.
It really does. And there's one scene I forgot to mention that I wanted to mention. It's when Fred is working as a soda jerk. He's making sandwiches and ice cream sundaes or whatever. And
I know exactly what you're about to say. And we're going to talk about the actor you're about to talk about next week because he's an ace in the hole.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. I love this kind of synergy. Yeah. So Homer comes in to, get a whatever he's getting from the soda shop, and
I think he's just coming to see Fred.
Yeah, because he knows he works there, and he wants to go in and see him. And there's a guy who's already sitting there, and he initiates a conversation with Homer about his hands. Hey, how did that happen? And he goes off on him. It's like, this war is for nothing, and it was a total waste, and all this stuff. And Homer, of course, stands up for himself and for for the war and everything. I was like, yeah, that scene today would be played out like the exact opposite with someone who would be criticizing the war, would be seen less as a villain.
Well, it depends. Like, this guy was an American isolationist, like in the mold of Donald Trump. So, and those kinds of people, there are people even today, people who are usually more conservative, who say that Churchill and Roosevelt were the reason that World War II was as bad as it was, and not Hitler and not Mussolini. Give me a fucking break. Yeah, you still see that. Actually, you see that a little bit on the extremes of both sides now. So yeah, I thought it struck as very contemporary to me.
That's what I meant. Yeah, it's more like that scene could certainly be had today with those two sides. We still haven't come any closer together on that one since World War II. And it's just funny, like, you think of World War II, at least like my understanding of it from the history books and everything, is that like everyone was like fully supportive of the war and the soldiers because we were attacked and everything. And you kind of forget there's this other section of people who probably were not for it at the time. It's just kind of been not swept under the rug, but it's just it's just not the story they generally tell.
You should watch The Plot Against America, which is all about, it's an alternate history of what if Lindbergh, who was an American isolationist and a Nazi sympathizer, if not a Nazi, what if he beat Roosevelt for the presidency, and what would that mean for Jews in New York, basically? Yeah, really interesting HBO miniseries with John Turturro playing an American isolationist rabbi, because of course.
You can't stop telling me he's not Jewish. What, he's just playing rabbis now? Like, come on.
He can't keep getting away with it. All right, cool. And that actor who causes the problems at the soda fountain is Ray Teal, who we'll talk about more next week, as he has a large role in a movie that we watched for 1951, which is what we will cover when we see you next time on Never Did It.